Game of Thrones, despite its ending, is one of the greatest shows of all time. It's like the LeBron James of television, but for many people, they just can't really put it in that GOAT conversation, and it mainly has to do with the ending. And it does make sense, you know. Watching Game of Thrones like going on a date with a girl. Everything goes perfectly. She's laughing, she's smiling, you both go to your apartment, and it's finally time to do that deed. And you drop your pants, and you immediately come right away, right when you're about to put it in. And she calls an Uber and blocks your number, and never talks to you again. The classic tale we all been through. That's how watching this show feels like. It's honestly quite sad. But as someone who is a diehard fan of the books, and by proxy the show, I thought I would rewrite the ending of the final 6 episodes, and how the story should have played out. So this is basically going to start off at the end of Season 7. I'm not saying Season 7 is good by any means, but I still think we can easily write a compelling story after Season 7 and at the start of Season 8. So let's start off with Episode 1.
At least your balls won't freeze off.
You take great offense at dwarf jokes, but love telling eunuch jokes.
Why is that?
Because I have balls, and you don't.
Now Episode 1 and Episode 2 are gonna be 99% the same. The only difference is that in Episode 2, when Jaime is on trial, he finally tells everyone the truth about the Mad King. So basically just think of what Jaime told Brienne in the tub, but now he's saying that to everyone on trial.
He told me to bring him my father's head. Then he turned to his pyromancer. Burn them all, he said. Burn them in their homes, burn them in their beds. And then, when the king turned to flee, I drove my sword into his back. Burn them all, he kept saying. Burn them all.
And the second big change is with Tyrion and Varys. So Tyrion sees that Daenerys is a bit on edge. She's getting stressed out by Cersei not being here, and she rightfully blames Tyrion. So Tyrion and Daenerys' relationship is a bit fragile. So Tyrion doesn't tell her, but Tyrion sends Varys down to King's Landing. The audience doesn't know why this is. But yeah, Varys is now in King's Landing. Now the third difference in Episode 2 is with the identity of the Night King. So you remember how in the TV show, this motherfucker had no identity? He just woke up one day and thought humanity needed to be destroyed? Like, relax bro, it's not that serious. But Bran explains to everyone the identity of the Night King. His identity in my rewrite is that he is the Night's King. If you don't know who the Night's King is, he is the 13th Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. And history tells us that he got banished for having a relationship with the White Walker. Now this part is canon, but in my version, the White Walker is Nissa Nissa. Nissa Nissa is the wife of Azor Ahai, the wife that he killed to get his Lightbringer sword. But he couldn't fully kill her, so she turned into a White Walker. And the Children of the Forest turned the Night's King into the Night King after the Starks from 100 years ago killed Nissa Nissa and tried to exterminate the Children of the Forest. So yeah, this is some really crazy dark kinky backstory of the Night King. Obviously we will see this from Bran's vision. He's walking and seeing all of this, just like how we saw Ned Stark and Hodor and everything. He sees Nissa Nissa and everything else. And the other difference in my Episode 2 is that this scene doesn't happen in my version.
My real name
Is Aegon Targaryen.
Yeah, so no one besides Bran and Sam know about Jon being the son of Rhaegar. But now let's get into the big changes and the big boy moments. Episode 3 starts. This is where things get crazy.
The White Walkers are approaching! Battle stations! Prepare for the most epic battle of all time that nobody will see because it's too dark, and we'll say it's because they have bad TVs.
This battle is gonna be the same, but Jorah doesn't die. But Tormund dies by a giant. Rest in peace to my glorious King Tormund's Giantsbane. And Beric and Lyanna die as well. But in Episode 3, Bran is warging into Viserion, but he's having a real hard time controlling him. Tyrion and Sansa, who are in the tunnels, they start evacuating everyone to Harrenhal. Tyrion is basically in front of a huge line of people, running to Harrenhal, and by the end of the episode, people like Jaime and Brienne also follow the line, and Winterfell is destroyed. Theon dies the same way. Bran, Daenerys, and Jon are the only ones in Winterfell, and Drogon is very injured. So Bran, Daenerys, and Jon all hop on Rhaegal, and the ending of Episode 3 is that they fly away, and the Night King goes down in the crypts. He resurrects everyone, and destroys the statues of the Starks. So now we are in Episode 4, and this is where shit gets really crazy. Everyone is at Harrenhal. Don't ask me how they got there so quick. Go ask the showrunners why they only gave themselves 6 episodes. But yeah, Tyrion, Sansa, Brienne, Jaime, the Hound, Melisandre, all the other characters, and the rest of the survivors are here in Harrenhal. Bran, Daenerys, and Jon are on some hill, and Bran uses a crow to find out where everyone went. So now Bran and the gang are flying to Harrenhal on Rhaegal, because Drogon is injured in the back. He's flying very, very slowly behind them. But as they are flying to Harrenhal, Bran is in another vision. He's walking around. Bran sees the mountain murdering the two babies of Elia and Rhaegar, and Bran is walking around seeing the entire sacking of King's Landing, with Tywin, Jaime, and Ned and everyone.
At the Trident, Dorne lost 10,000 men and 2 princes. My uncle in the King's Guard and Elia's gallant husband, Prince Rhaegar, who was too slow or too arrogant for Robert's war hammer. As Robert's army marched on King's Landing, the Mad King sent his own wife and child away, but kept my sister and hers inside. In his madness, Aerys thought that the Dornish had betrayed his son at the Trident, and was only too happy to welcome his one true friend back into his ranks, Tywin Lannister. Lord Tywin's army sacked his friend's city while Lord Tywin's son murdered the king he'd sworn to protect. All this could have been forgiven. War is terrible, and men must become terrible to wage it. But the Lannisters knew that as long as my sister and her children, Prince Rhaegar's heirs, lived, no usurper could safely sit the throne. So Lord Tywin's dog, Sir Gregor Clegane, the Mountain, made Elia watch as he murdered her daughter and dashed her infant son's head against a wall. Then, with her baby's blood still on his hands, he raped my sister and murdered her. When Lord Tywin later presented their bodies to Robert Baratheon wrapped in pretty Lannister cloaks, I have been told the red color graciously hid the blood from men's eyes.
But Daenerys, Jon, and Bran, they finally make it to Harrenhal, and Daenerys says she's going to bend the knee to Cersei. Tyrion says no, Cersei's just gonna lie again, and Daenerys, who is stressed the fuck out, she says that there is nothing more she can do. Tyrion doesn't reply. Tyrion doesn't want to feel Daenerys again, so he keeps his mouth shut about Varys, the whole thing with Varys going to King's Landing. And Tyrion knows if Cersei does accept Daenerys' surrender, so then it's a win-win for Tyrion and Varys, where Bran tells Jon, hey, no matter what happens to me, or anyone, before you go to King's Landing, I want you to put me at the Rewrote tree inside the God's Eye. The God's Eye is pretty close to King's Landing if you didn't know. And Jon's like, nah, the Night King knows where you are at all times. I can't just leave you alone and let the Night King kill you. And Bran says, promise me. Bran says Jon has to trust him with this, no matter what happens. And Jon says fine. And Bran tells Samwell to wheel him to the highest floor in Harrenhal for the night, and Sam does. So then it's nighttime, Jon and Dany are sleeping together, and everyone else is sleeping under like tables, and under trees, and whatever. But Tyrion is awake. He is walking back and forth, trying to think of a plan for Cersei and the Night King. And then Tyrion hears a loud noise. It's Bran. Bran fell from the highest floor in Harrenhal. So then episode 5 starts. Jon puts Bran's lifeless body in the Rewrote tree in God's Eye, and Jon says goodbye to Bran, and he cries. He lost another brother. Jon then gets on Rhaegal and flies to King's Landing. And this scene goes very similar to the TV show. The main difference is that Jon is here, the armies are not here, and Tyrion and Daenerys both bend the knee to Cersei. Cersei is on top of the castle just like the TV show, and in front of her is the Lannister army. And in front of the Lannister army is the Golden Company. And in front of the Golden Company is Bronn. Bronn is the military commander for the Golden Company. Cersei tells Daenerys and Tyrion that she knows this is a trick. And she knows this is a trick because she brings out Varys. So in the TV show, she brought up Missandei. But in my rewrite, she brings out Varys, who is completely bruised and beaten. And Cersei asks Varys the same thing she asked Missandei in the TV show.
If you have any last words, now is the time.
However, Varys can't talk. Cersei cut out his tongue, and Euron is just laughing. And as the Mountain is taking out his sword to slice off Varys' head and turn him into Ned Stark 2.0, Varys looks at Tyrion and nods his head. Tyrion nods back to Varys, and Varys dies. he gets his bald head chopped off. Tyrion falls on both knees now. Seeing his friend die, Tyrion, with tears in his eyes, looks at Bronn, and Tyrion nods his head, and Bronn nods back to Tyrion, and Bronn from the top of his lungs yells "now," and the Golden Company turns around and kills the Lannister army. So yeah, that's why Varys was here in King's Landing. He made a deal with the Golden Company and Bronn, and this scene is basically the same scene from season 1.
Commander, take the Queen and her children into custody.
Men of the Watch!
The reason why I love this scene so much is because in season 2, Bronn is the cutthroat who replaced Janos Slynt.
You think I'll stand here and take this from you, dwarf?
Dwarf? You should have stopped at Imp. And yes, you will stand here and take it from me, unless you'd like to take it from my friend here.
We shall hear what Joffrey has to say about this.
No, we shan't. There's a ship leaving for Eastwatch by the Sea tonight. From there, I'm afraid it's rather a long walk to Castle Black.
The lads will escort you. The streets aren't safe at night, my lord.
These men are under my command. I command you to arrest this cutthroat.
His name is Bronn, and he is the new commander of the City Watch.
Boys? I have friends at court! Powerful friends! The king himself made me a lord!
To the new commander.
And now Bronn, who is basically the good version of Janos Slynt, betrays Cersei's men, just like how her men betrayed Ned Stark's men. I'm not even gonna lie, I actually love how I wrote this scene so much. I'm an actual fucking genius. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't. But because the armies and the people at Harrenhal didn't have dragons, they finally make it to King's Landing. So the Unsullied and the Stark army are now finally in King's Landing. However, Jaime is still walking to King's Landing, and the Hound, well, he's still drunk at Harrenhal. But most people are in King's Landing, fighting off the Lannister army. But Cersei is running to the Red Keep. She is being escorted by the Mountain. But as Cersei is running to the Red Keep, she looks at the building, and she sees blue smoke coming from it. The Night King is here in King's Landing, and is burning everyone. Cersei tells the Mountain and Qyburn to leave King's Landing, because it's time for a backup plan. But Qyburn knows what this means. He pulls out a knife, and slices his throat, and Qyburn is dead. The Mountain starts to leave King's Landing. The Night King is burning people. He didn't come with an army, but he raises his arms, and every dead body comes back. All of the Lannister army is back on their feet, and the Night King is ready to fight. And episode 5 ends here. Now we get to the finale, and I hope you can trust me when I say this ending is gonna be a lot better than this.
And who has a better story than Bran the Broken?
So episode 6 starts, the final episode of Game of Thrones. I really hope this episode is not only better than the TV show episode, but I really hope it's better than the Game of Bones porno from many years ago. But episode 6 starts with Jaime. Jaime enters King's Landing, but he enters through a tunnel. In the tunnel, he hears a woman singing a familiar song. On top of him is the Battle of King's Landing. Tyrion, Sansa, Brienne and Podrick, they're all fighting in the corner of King's Landing. Brienne falls to the ground, being overwhelmed by the dead. Podrick keeps fighting and protects them all. Podrick gets slashed. Brienne looks at Podrick as one sword goes into him, then 2, then 3, and Podrick dies protecting Tyrion and Sansa and sacrifices his life for Brienne. Brienne is holding Podrick's dead body, and they keep fighting. Meanwhile, Drogon is weak, and the Night King finally spots Daenerys. The Night King is about to burn her alive, but Bronn shoots Viserion with the dragon arrow, the same type of dragon arrow he shot Daenerys with, and now he saved her life with. Daenerys falls off her dragon, and Jorah picks her up. Daenerys picks up a sword and fights alongside with Jorah, while Drogon is behind them, completely injured, but he is firing fire at the dead. Meanwhile, the Mountain makes it outside of Harrenhal. He sees the Hound, and they talk, and then they pick up their swords and start fighting. The Night King kills his own dragon, and resurrects him again, and all of the dead have risen again. Jon Snow spots the Night King and burns him, but just like the TV show, this doesn't work. Jon is shocked that all the dead have risen again. Brienne cries knowing this war is unwinnable, but the fight continues. Meanwhile, Jaime, who's in the tunnels, he still hears a woman singing, and the song she is singing is The Rains of Castamere, and the woman is Cersei. Cersei is about to blow up King's Landing. She's going to burn them all.
Burn them all!
Jaime tells Cersei to stop. Jaime tells her everyone is already dead, so why make the chances 0? Cersei said it's something father would do. Jaime tries explaining to her that he and Cersei can just go to Essos and try living there, but Cersei calls him a fool. Cersei tells Jaime that there's no reason to fight anymore, and Cersei will be the queen that killed the Night King after she blows up King's Landing. She tells Jaime to kiss her one last time and light everything up together, and Jaime holds her face and gives her a kiss. Cersei smiles, and Jaime starts choking her out, and blood starts coming out of Cersei's mouth as she is choking to death, just like Joffrey. Meanwhile, Yara enters the throne room. She sees Euron sitting on the throne. Euron is laughing. Yara says, "What's so funny?" Euron says that this fight doesn't matter because Cersei is gonna blow up the entire city anyways, and Yara is completely shocked. And they both take out their swords and start dueling. Yara is losing this, but she opens the door to the throne room and it lets in all of the dead, and she escapes the room as Euron is being eaten alive by the dead in the throne room. And Jon makes it to Daenerys and Jorah. Samwell and Gilly are also there. They've also been fighting this whole time, but Jorah keeps getting hit. He's trying to clear the way for Daenerys to get to Jon and Rhaegal, and he starts leading a line of wives away from them, and he gets stabbed a bunch of times, and Jorah is dead. Jon picks up Daenerys and puts her on Rhaegal. Jon is on the ground now talking to Samwell, and they both see something. The Night King is flying away. Jon is wondering where he is flying away to, and Samwell tells Jon he's finally awake now. Jon says who? Sam says Bran. He tells Jon that Bran threw himself out of the window, so that Bran would technically be dead, and the Night King wouldn't know where he is. But Bran is awake now, and the Night King knows where he is now, and the Night King is going to kill him at the God's Eye. Jon and Daenerys both get on top of Rhaegal, and they fly after the Night King, and they're all rushing towards the God's Eye. Meanwhile, Jaime climbs out of the tunnels. He sees Brienne, Tyrion, and Sansa, and he goes to help them. Brienne and Tyrion are fighting one side of the windows, and Sansa and Jaime are fighting on the other side. And Jaime and Brienne are both using both of Ned Stark's swords. And Jaime stands in front of Sansa, and Jaime is being stabbed over and over again. Brienne and Tyrion get close to him. All 4 of them are together, but Jaime clears the way for Sansa to get to Brienne, and Jaime dies. He sacrificed his life to save Sansa Stark, and Tyrion sees Jaime's dead body being stomped on by the Whites. Meanwhile, the Hound and the Mountain are fighting. The Mountain presses the Hound's face onto the campfire. The Mountain is about to kill the Hound, but right before that, Nymeria shows up, Arya's direwolf, and she bites off the Mountain's head and eats him alive. The Hound looks like he survived, but the Night King sees Bran at the Weirwood tree. He is about to kill Bran, but Bran wargs into Viserion and crashes him onto the land. Jon and Dany fly next to the tree, and Jon gets out his sword and 1v1s the Night King. Daenerys picks up Bran and puts him on Rhaegal. Both of them are on the dragon now, and this is where shit gets crazy. Bran tells Daenerys that she must be strong. Daenerys thinks, what the fuck is this kid talking about? Bran tells her the quote of love is the death of duty, and duty is the death of love.
Love is the death of duty.
Sometimes, duty is the death of love.
Bran tells Daenerys you have to listen to me, and Daenerys says what do you want me to do? Both of them are seeing Jon lose the 1v1 with the Night King. Bran says to her, say it. Daenerys says say what? Bran replies, Dracarys. Daenerys yells, I'm not gonna burn Jon. He's your brother. He will be burned to death. I'll kill him too. Bran looks at Jon and explains to Daenerys, Jon is not my brother. His name, his real name, is Aegon Targaryen.
Robert's rebellion was built on a lie. Rhaegar didn't kidnap my aunt or rape her. He loved her, and she loved him. Jon's real name
is Aegon Targaryen.
He's never been a bastard. He's the heir to the Iron Throne.
Bran tells Daenerys Jon will not die because fire cannot kill a dragon.
Fire cannot kill a dragon.
Rhaegal gets closer to Jon, and Jon looks up, and he thinks Daenerys, Bran, and Rhaegal are about to kill him. The fire goes on Jon, and Jon is in the fire, All of his clothes get burnt off. He is completely butt-booty naked. But Jon is shocked that he is not dead. Jon looks at the ground and looks at the Catspaw dagger that Bran gave him earlier. But the Catspaw dagger is completely glowing with the words, "The prince was promised."
From my blood come the prince that was promised. And his will be the song of ice and fire.
Rhaegal is still firing everywhere. He hasn't stopped. And the Night King is blinded by the fire. Bran wargs into Viserion, and both dragons are firing at the Rewrote tree. Both fiery flames and ice flames. The Night King can't see anything, but a naked Jon grabs him and sticks the blade into him, and the Night King shatters. And as Brienne is about to give up, all of the White Walkers shatter as well. Brienne goes to Jaime's dead body, and everyone is crying. Sir Davos is on the ground and completely tired. But back to what's happening in the God's Eye, Bran and Daenerys both fall off Rhaegal. Rhaegal vanishes into thin air. The Rewrote tree vanishes into thin air. All of the magic in Westeros is gone. The magic has died. Daenerys goes to Jon's last known spot, and can't find him. Jon also vanished into thin air. Bran tells her, the magic went away when the Night King died, and when Jon Snow took the knife out of the Night King, Jon was no longer immune to fire, and he was burned alive. Daenerys goes to some random fire, and touches it, and her hand gets completely burnt. She is also no longer immune to fire. And then we get a 2-week time jump. King's Landing is being repaired. Sir Davos is kinda like at a bar or whatever, and Melisandre walks in, and she tells Sir Davos that it's time. Sir Davos grabs a sword, and sticks it into her heart. Meanwhile, Daenerys, Grey Worm, Missandei, and Tyrion, they all walk into the throne room. Daenerys sits on the throne, Tyrion bends the knee, and Daenerys closes her eyes. Tyrion looks at the crowd of people who are all watching Daenerys sit on the throne, and Tyrion sees a familiar face in that crowd. Tyrion looks at Daenerys sitting on the throne, and he takes off his hand. Tyrion says to Daenerys that he was not a good hand, and he has no idea what the hell he's doing.
I don't deserve it. I thought I was wise, but I wasn't. I thought I knew what was right, but I didn't.
And Tyrion quits his hand. But Daenerys asks Tyrion, then who will be the person to check my worst impulses? And she wants Tyrion to stay as her hand. Tyrion says not me, but probably someone who's always been with you. And the familiar face that Tyrion saw was Jorah. Jorah walks from the middle of the crowd, and finally shows himself as alive. Jorah survived that battle, and Jorah is named her hand. Tyrion is about to walk out of the room, and Daenerys tells Tyrion to wait. And Daenerys says she has a gift for Tyrion. Just like how many seasons ago, Tyrion was the gift for her.
I brought you a gift! It's true! He has.
Who are you?
I am the gift. It's a pleasure to meet you, Your Grace. My name is Tyrion Lannister.
And then we get a 2-year time jump. And this is basically a montage of the opening credits. So you know how the opening of Game of Thrones, when the camera goes to each city? It's basically that. But you get to see what's happening in each city. First the camera goes into Casterly Rock, and Tyrion is now the king of Casterly Rock. That was Daenerys' gift to him. And him and Bronn are laughing and drinking in a whorehouse together. Then the camera goes to the Iron Islands, and Yara is the queen, and is training a young girl. The camera then goes to King's Landing, and Daenerys is talking to Gendry and Sir Davos in the throne room. Daenerys tells Gendry Storm's End is completely repaired, and she wants Gendry to be the king of Storm's End, and Sir Davos has his hand. They leave the room smiling, and Brienne is escorting them out. Brienne is the Lord Commander of the Queen's Guard, and as she is walking, she bumps into Samwell, who is a Maester, who can actually be in a relationship. And Jorah tells Daenerys, that's another kingdom you lost. And Daenerys says good, the wheel is finally breaking. Daenerys then calls for Jon. Not Jon Snow, Jon Targaryen. Yeah, Daenerys was pregnant this whole time with Jon Snow's baby, and she named the baby Jon. And Missandei and Grey Worm are godparents to the baby, because they can't have their own kids in case you forgot. The camera then goes to a dock, and Arya is leaving to see what's west of Westeros, and the camera then goes to Winterfell. Sansa is now queen, and Bran is her hand, and the Hound is Lord Commander of Sansa's Queensguard. The camera then goes down to the crypt, and the camera goes past Ned Stark, Lyanna Stark, and the final cut for the Game of Thrones TV show is the camera zooming into the statue of Jon Snow. The end. So yeah, that's it for this rewrite. Hopefully it's better than the TV show ending, and obviously better than that porno. But yeah, a few things I want to clear up. I don't think any of this is going to happen in The Winds of Winter and Dream of Spring, like the final 2 books. This is solely from like the TV show, and this is what the TV show was based on. Like in this rewrite, I had Jon Snow being Azor Ahai, but in the books, I do think Daenerys is Azor Ahai, and Jon most likely is the prince who was promised, if those 2 things are different in the books. But I do think if there's only one, I do think Dany is going to be Azor Ahai in the books. And that is like kinda how like George describes the story.
Well, of course, the 2 outlying ones, the things that are going north of the wall, and Daenerys Targaryen on the other continent with her dragons are of course the ice and fire of the title, A Song of Ice and Fire. And yeah, some of you might be asking, why did Bran think of the death of Rhaegar's children? Or like, why was he seeing the death of Rhaegar's children? I explained in my other video. The other video is called Who Was Azor Ahai? But it's basically because the death of Rhaegar and the death of his children and the birth of Jon Snow are completely parallel of Azor Ahai creating his sword, which is hinting to Jon being the prince who was promised. But go check out that video if you want to see more depth. But overall, I just want to make Bran more interesting, because everyone hated Bran in that last season.
Character is just a lifeless fucking statue of uninteresting everything. He's like a black hole of fun or anything interesting in the show. He's so fucking useless and underutilized, it's insulting to every other character in the show that they have to share the same set as this character sometimes. This isn't me critiquing the actor again, it's just this character does nothing throughout the entirety of the show. And this cool power he has, being able to see everything, the only thing he uses it for is to give some one-liners every now and then to make a character feel bad. You know, like he'll say something to Jaime Lannister, the things I do for love, and then, you know, that's it, just to make Jaime feel like a dickhead. It's so dumb. It's a cool power on paper, but in this show, there's nothing it can be used for. Bran has done 2 things of note throughout the entirety of the show, of his own power, which is give Jon Snow his true background, what he actually is, and be bait for the Night King in the newest episode. That's all he's ever done directly. It's so fucking sad.
I think I could have done more with Arya, but I do think she's kind of like a badass assassin, and I like that she was just protecting people in the long night. I thought that was like more than enough, really. Like, I personally liked her ending on the TV show. I don't even think it was that bad, but I totally understand if people didn't like her ending. I mean, hell, if Tywin Lannister says it's bad, then it's probably bad.
Got to the very end, and I thought, okay, there's little Arya, she's going off on a cruise somewhere. Poor Jon's gone back up north, beyond the wall.
But yeah, hopefully y'all like this ending. It's basically the only ending I care about until George releases the final books, which I do in the future. I have a few videos on the books coming out. But overall, I do think we will get the Winds of Winter in like 2 to 3 years from now, especially with what he's been saying.
I am making progress with the Winds of Winter, but it's still not done yet. But I have.
How much are we talking? How far are you behind?
Well, 3/4 of the way done. I'm done with some of the characters. You know, they're all the characters all interweave.
Sure.
So I've actually finished with a couple of the characters. I got their whole story, but not others. So I have to finish all that weaving, but it's still going to take me a while.
But yeah, this video was painful to make. I'm not sure if you can tell, but I was like losing my voice this entire video. But yeah, let me know if there's any plot holes in this video. Let me know down below in the comments. I really hope I didn't miss anyone. I might have missed a few things, but yeah, that's it for this video. Like, subscribe, and peace.